In this lesson, we're going to look at how we can create materials and assign those materials to the objects inside of our scene. So right now, we have 5 little objects, some blocks, and a plane inside the scene. You can open up the file that comes with the training, or you can go ahead and just create a couple of objects in the scene to work with. On the right hand side, we see our channel box, and below our channel box we see a tab for our attribute editor. Our attribute editor is going to have the properties that are associated with each one of these objects. If we go into the attribute editor, and let's go all the way across to the right hand side, we're going to see our initial shading group, which is the material that's applied to it, and we see a Lambert. This is the material and its properties. We could quickly go through and change some of the colors, and we'll notice something when we do. We can click on our color to get a color wheel, and then we can adjust the color properties. Now when we do, we notice that it's changing all of the colors of the objects inside of the scene. It's going to do this because we have one material right now applied to the default objects, the default material. Now if we want to change up the material, we want to have a unique material for each object, then we're going to need to create one. In order to do that, we're going to go through our hypershade inside of Maya, and this allows us to work with the materials and to make new materials to apply to objects. Now there's two ways we can get to our hypershade. We can use our default panel option here so that we can actually have it embedded inside of our viewport, and this brings our hypershade here in our graph, and then we have our viewport here to work with. Or optionally, we could go up to our Windows menu and into our rendering editors, and then over to our hypershade editor here. Both ways will work just fine, either way that you choose, just to make it a little less cluttered as we work. We'll go ahead and work on it as an embedded panel here. Okay, so we can see inside of this panel we've got a lot of options and things. Let's not worry too much about a lot of what's going on in there. What we want to do is just focus on just what we need control of, and what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to apply a material to a object. So if we look in this box right in here, we can see the types of materials that are currently inside of the project. We have the Lambert, which is our default material that's applied to the objects as they get created. We've got a particle and a shader. Now what we want to do is create a new material. To create a new material, all we need to do is go into our list right over in here. We can see a list of different types of materials that we can create and assign to our objects. And for our purpose, we're going to use just a blend material. So I'm going to select and left click on blend. That's going to add a blend material right over here for me. Selecting on this is going to change up the information I see right here. So my properties of this are right in here. This is my blend material. I can adjust the name if I want to and call this box 1. It's going to adjust the name over here as well. We can change up the color of this if we want. We can left click on it again. We can just make a selection of a color. There we go. We'll make a nice little blue color. And then we could change our transparency if we wanted. We can make it so that it's more see-through. The transparency is the opacity of the object. Our ambience if we wanted to, so that it is more fully lit, or incandescent as well. The different options we have available to us. The main one that we want to focus on is just the color of the object. Now how do I get this material assigned to the object that I want? Well, I can make a selection of the object. I can go over into the material editor and I can simply just right click and hold. And as I right click and hold, I'm going to move the little rubber band up so that it highlights this option as the assigned material to selection. And I'm just going to let go, and that's going to assign the material to the selected object that I have. And if you don't see the color come up right away, be sure that you check your options up above. Right now we have our shaded turned on, but here we have our mix. I'm going to turn that one off so that we can see just the material. There we go. Okay, so we now have a unique material assigned to the object inside of our scene. Now if we select on our object again, and we are in our attribute editor, we can go all the way through and we can see our material right here, our box 1. We can see it labeled there, and in fact we might even call this a material box 1 just to help it stand out a little bit more for us. Now we can make adjustments between the type of shader that it is. It's a blend shader right now. We could do an anastrophic if we had different needs for the material. For our needs though, blend is going to work just fine. Below that we have our specular shading. With each type of shader that we have, material type that we have, we're going to get a different set of properties to edit. The specular shading is one that is available to a blend material. Okay, so we now have a material. Let's go ahead and create a couple more materials just to go through this process. So I'm going to select on this one, and let's go back in and we say, alright, this time we'll just make another blend. I'm going to left click on the blend. It's going to make a new material for me. I can go in and label this material box 2. And then let's select on the item that we want to assign it to, and just right click and assign to that selection. There we go. And let's make a couple more. We have 1, 2, 3 more materials. So 1, 2, and let's do 3. There we go. And let's assign this one to our material on the bottom. And we can change up our color here. Let's make this more of a green color. And for our next one, let's adjust our colors again. We can make something more in our yellow range. And then for our last one, let's do a red color. So I'll select on the red one, and this way we don't have the default material affecting anything inside of our scene. And we'll assign it to it, and then we can go in and make an adjustment on the color. There we go. Okay, so just like that, we're able to create materials, adjust the colors on the materials, assign the materials to our objects in the scene, and then get to the properties of those materials through our attribute editor over here. And then I would encourage you to take a moment to assign more materials, create a few more materials. If you want to delete materials from the hypershade, you can simply left click on it and then hit delete to delete that material from the scene. Alright, so with that I would suggest also to go to some of the properties over here. Take a moment to adjust some of the transparency options so you can get a sense for how that works. You can adjust some of the specular properties as well. You can adjust some of the translucency and your incandescent options. Okay, so have some fun with that, try it out, see how it works. And next up, we're actually going to assign a material to these objects, an actual texture image to these objects, and we'll do that next.